Hey guys, so I'm just going to chat with you real quick so you know what you need if you're going to be dyeing your clay with mason stains. So now that my clay is bone dry, this is the bone dry clay, and you can tell it's bone dry because the clay gets all crumbly and it's warmer to the touch than a wetter clay. I'm trying to show you, but if it gets kind of like chalky, it's like, chalky, that's how you know it's bone dry, okay? All right, so first you have your bone dry clay, and then you're gonna have your mason stain. Now, depending on where you buy your mason stain from, it should have the weight on here. Like this says it's 20 grams of mason stain. You might also get some that are like this one, for example, is 40 grams, depending on where you get it from, or you get a pound. And you wanna mix 1 to 10 ratio stain to clay. So if you have 1 gram, then you want 10 grams of clay, okay? So for example, with this 20-gram bag of ebony stain, I want 200 grams of clay. And that's also another reason why you should be using bone dry clay, even though somebody had commented on my Blue Sky like, oh, you can just wedge it into the clay. You can just wedge it into the clay. But if you want accurate, you want it dry so that you can weigh the clay properly. All right, so you want to get some kind of bowl, and I have a little plant water container here, but yeah, you're just going to add your last bit of clay in here. So this is about 200 grams. All right, so what you're also going to need is a Ziploc baggie. So you have your mason stain, and then anytime you work with mason stains, you want to make sure that you have a respirator. You can get this from your local pottery store or like Home Depot because these are chemicals and you can inhale it and it can harm you. To your Ziploc bag, and anytime I use pottery stuff, I'm usually using distilled water. So I'm going to add some distilled water to the bottom of this bag, and then I'm going to add the mason stain in here. Distilled water. Mind you, I also like to label my bag, so I have how many grams, the type of clay, and cone 6 for firing. Okay, so a couple things I wanted to mention. You can write directly on the bag, but if you're going to reuse the bag, especially if like you want to keep on doing ebony, it's good to have the ratio on here because let's say you want to experiment and do like 10 grams to 200 grams if you want a lighter black or like a gray, you know what I'm saying? So I think it's good to do that. That way you update your recipe and you're not having to like scratch it out all over the bag or know what the ratio is. Also, you want to make sure you have your gloves, and you can use a rolling pin to, after your clay is bone dry, to sort of make the pieces smaller so it's easier for you to like work the stain into the clay. So as you can see, like it's black, but there's still some pieces that are gray as they're getting to rehydrate, but this is going to sit overnight and absorb into the clay. You might want to have a wedging board dedicated to a stain so that it's not dyeing everything, because obviously if you were to take this out the bag, you're going to get the black stain everywhere. Also, if you're not using porcelain clay, you can use like an Amoco white clay or another type of white clay. Even if it has some sort of grog in it or like a tan clay, just be mindful that if your clay has any tint or any color in it, like if it's a brown clay or a red clay, you might need more pigment in order to get the color that you want, or it could have a chemical reaction and come completely different color than you expected. This happened to me before in the past. So yeah, I mean, just experiment.